All right, the time is 4:30 p.m. and it is July 11th, and we are getting ready to start the Board of Commissioners for the Skagit Public Utility District meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we're going to start with just a housekeeping item. We're going to move items 10 and 11 up just above item number 9 there, just because item number 9 is probably going to take a little while. We've got some folks that probably don't want to sit through it. So at this time, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6.
So move.
I second.
Motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is adopted. This time, if there's any members of the audience wishing to offer comment, please step to the podium, state your name and city of residence.
Janet Friebel.
I'm just here representing the drainage and irrigation districts, which are West Mount Vernon to Conway and for Island. So I just wanted to thank you for considering entering into the interlocal agreement with drainage and irrigation districts 15 and 22 in the event that an emergency drought is declared next week, or I guess at any point this summer. And the districts have appreciated these agreements in previous years. So just so you guys know, the Skagit has met the physical criteria for a drought declaration. Ecology has issued a drought advisory for the Skagit. So we're well below normal for precipitation. We've only had about 1.4 inches of rain since May 1st, which is really when the irrigation season starts. We're now, the USDA is reporting less than 50% normal snowpack. So, we had a big snow runoff in May, and now we're really low, which means, the Skagit River isn't going to recover for the remainder of the year. It'll be below the in-stream flow rule. And also both the districts in question have junior water rights. They were curtailed on June 17th, so almost a month ago, except for a couple days in early July. And most of the district ditches at this point are dry or extremely low. So the reservoir that we use PUD water to basically top off and keep full, they're already sort of beyond recovery to a certain extent. Like they're dry, which makes it really difficult for these transfers. So just for the record, the districts definitely support the use of an administrative fee. That was part of the packet that you received. We understand that there are technical and administrative burdens that the PUD has in terms of tracking, reporting, and then ultimately reporting the transfers back to ecology, particularly if there's tidal conditions. But the districts do have questions about the additional cost proposed, and this is a per acre foot cost of the water. And so it's our understanding that PUD would allow the water to just stay in the river, bypassing the diversion points just upstream of Cedar Woolley, and not put the water to use. The water stays in the river, and without the seasonal drought transfers, that water would just continue on to Skagit Bay. And so, from the district's perspective, and these are the questions that they had, they would be incurring the cost of pumping the water and distributing it, and that wouldn't be a burden to the PUD. And so in addition, we just had some questions about the methods used to calculate the cost range of cost of the per acre foot. These seem to be quite a bit higher than rates for irrigation water in Eastern Washington, which is where most of the farming competition lies. And, the costs in Eastern Washington include,
Let's see. Anyone on Zoom wishing to offer comment tonight? Raise your hand function. There, we will move on to the general manager's report. George.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, just to respond to Jenna's comments, at the time we go through the item, Bill's here and Mark is here as well. We'll try and go through each of the informational things we put in about the rates. So hopefully that'll get that information more clear to everybody. I've got a couple things to update on just internally. Next week on the 19th, we have an all-staff meeting in the morning. And then we are inviting the Sugar Shack ice cream truck to come in the afternoon to share some treats. So 2:45 to 3:45, I think, is when they're coming next Wednesday. So if you get a little craving for ice cream in the afternoon on the 19th, you can stop by. And then this information was in the newsletter today. More information is coming, but the Employee Association is planning a picnic on August 20th in Anacortes. So more information to come on that. As far as Waputa meetings are concerned, this week there are association meetings at the Clearwater Casino Resort in Suquamish. So there should have been emails about water committee meeting and board of directors meeting, I think, other things. So you can sign up and attend those. And then I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but the email came out from Lena about the water workshop. That's going to be at the Seven Cedars Casino in Sequim. Did you guys get emails about that? Maybe not.
Yes, I think I did.
Right, but you
I'll have
don't.
to look through, maybe
Okay, maybe I'll just send it just so you all have it again. So, the room block is open. There's nothing to do with registration or anything yet, but it just enables you to reserve the room. And a couple of other things. So the state auditor's office is continuing their audit for us. They're doing their accountability audit. And it's a little bit different this year. They're starting earlier, but there's also no entrance conference. And so everybody got an email this afternoon from the state auditors, just kind of clarifying that there's no entrance conference, but they shared all of the documents and everything in the engagement letter with you today. So the important part of that is if you have questions or concerns, you're able to talk to either Brian or I, or you can share things with the auditor if you want to do that as well. So it's meant for open conversation, and even if they didn't talk to you directly, you're able to communicate with them if there's concerns that you have. They will do an exit conference where they share the findings with us, so that we're not anticipating that to change, and we'll let you know when that is. And then big news today also. So we have hired a maintenance superintendent from our internal maintenance department, Tyler Scott. He's been here less than 2 years, but put his application in a few weeks ago, and we've been talking to him for a while. And he's a great employee. He's got good relationships with everybody on the maintenance department. He's motivated to do the job, so he's going to start next week. So that's a big position, big shoes to fill, regardless of who was there before, but he seems to be up for the challenge, and we're going to support him and help him be successful. So, and internal movement is always good, right? People know him and he knows what the PD is about. So that's going to be good. And that's all I got. And I'm sure Mike was going to announce that in his department update. So I probably stole that from him already. Yeah. So that's it for me, unless there's questions.
None for me.
None? Okay.
All right, Mike, you're up.
Quicker is business, so we don't really have Nick to let me get through this one here. Go ahead to the first one there, Nick, if you don't mind. Good afternoon, everybody. Start with some of the updates to the treatment plant. These last few months haven't been real exciting. It's pretty steady as you go right now at this time of year for us, but a little bit of information here on some things that have changed. You go to the next one, Nick. You guys get this in your packet every week, but we've been pretty fortunate the last few weeks that we're actually still gaining a little bit on the reservoir, despite typically this time of year we're in a free fall. So as you see, the ending of June 28th, we were up 6 inches. If you go to the next one, Nick, we gained another inch last week, and then I get the data this morning. If you go to the next one, Nick, we're actually on. I didn't put the chart up there because the graph was bad, but we gained up another 4 inches so far this week. So we're still gaining, which is pretty remarkable for this time of year with the hot streaks and stuff we had. So we're doing well. So again, the last few weeks we've had either an increase or kind of a flat line. Still using 2 pumps, making 14 million gallons a day. The highest flow so far we had was at a point in June where we made 15.4 million gallons a day, but our max is 21.6 according to our square feet of volume we can put through the filters, because you only do 7 filters in the rating and all that. But that's a pretty good day for us putting out that volume of water in June. So we're stretching the limits there for a little bit, a couple times. Next. Also at the treatment plant, they've just recently, the last couple of weeks, we have put in the new chlorine, ammonia, and CO2 alarms that were in the capital plan for this year. Maybe we carried over from 21. I can't remember, because it took like a year to get the parts for this project. Those have finally all been put into place in the lower gallery, and all the alarming is functional and comes over the screens to the operators at their interface. And we're soon going to implement Win 911 also. I'm not sure what you guys use or not, but we're going to that. And yeah,
We are still on the super awesome dialer.
the auto dialers, yeah. So all that stuff's in place and working well, which is a great safety thing for us up there. We had 2 new showers located for L&I. They recommended another one on the dock by the chemical loading doors, and another one outside the chlorine room. So those have been put in place. But we still need to get the plumbing done. That's supposed to start the 24th. So doing good there as well. On to the next. Amelia is helping again this year with the Legionella study. We'll do 20 samples this month and in August both. This is the perfect time of year because the water temperature is warmer. It tends to produce better results. We're not going to find anything we're aware of. We're just helping the other 60 or 70 entities across the country that are providing data. We volunteered to do the same thing and help out. So we don't expect to find anything or have anything, but we're just included as part of the study. And Amelia volunteered us last year as well. So doing that again this year. On top of that, lead and copper testing, the consumer confidence report information is up on the website. We had a couple instances last week when it was hot at Semmes River Park out off Old 99. We had a couple people call in that had some black debris in their water and ran some samples and come to find out that their iron and manganese was really high. But upon doing some flushing and investigations on our water, it's not coming from us. There used to be an old well system that was an LUD took over. And what Amelia has found out is there's a potential of legacy iron and manganese, they call it, that's collected in people's pipes. So sometimes during higher flows, that stuff will break through in their system and they'll get it in their faucets or their sinks or something like that. And actually their results were over some of the MCLs, and they're going to start regulating manganese like lead in the future with the state. So that's going to be a contaminant that's going to be regulated in the future. But we went and flowed our water and our side of the yolks and all that. It's not coming from us. It's leftover stuff from their old well system. Oh yeah, next, please. As part of the budget this year, you see the annual cleaning inspections of the reservoirs that start on Friday. They're going to be here Friday, and they're going to do 8 sites, including Division Street. And the other one's listed there. Division Street, this will be the first time it's been cleaned since it was built. And there's a tremendous amount of pillars in there, and the water circulation instrumentation, but the plumbing that's in there to help circulate the water, I think is going to provide them a little bit of a challenge. Probably nothing they haven't come across before, but I think their schedule is a little bit optimistic how long they're going to be here. We'll see though. It'll give us a good look inside Division Street for the first time since it was built. What kind of accumulation of stuff we got since it was put in place. The page on the right, it's okay, Nick. The page on the right just kind of shows what a typical report is. They take pictures inside there. They show the findings and the flaws, and they send us a full report of video, picture diagrams, bad spots. That all comes in a folder and file when they're all done with all the inspections on all the reservoirs. Okay, go to the next one. Pressures last week and the weeks before, due to that hot stretch, was down over 20 pounds. Right now, we're still down about 20 pounds from the Cedar Woolley side of the system. The way the distribution system works, it kind of comes through Cedar Woolley and Burlington on the Cedar Woolley side of the transmission line. The Mount Vernon side comes down through the Colson Trail and Riverside Drive. And basically the two systems meet at the Riverside Bridge right over here. So if it's really hot, sometimes the water will kind of push one way or the other back and forth over the bridge, depending upon demand. But the Riverside Bridge is kind of our meeting point of our distribution or transmission system. And the Cedar Woolley side is down a little bit more than typical this time of year. We don't have any anacortes interties on yet, but we're down a little bit. And there are some extra hydrant meters out there. Farmers have a few more meters out there than, I wouldn't say more than typical, but the way the system is right now, we're okay. We're not any kind of a danger zone of having too low a pressure, but it has provided a little bit of operating difficulties here and there when it's been really hot, that we're making some changes on. But some of these graphs coming up next, Nick, if you don't mind, the next one kind of shows, it's really hard to see on the screen, but up on the top left, there's some data points up there that show the lowest pressure during a 1 month stretch and the highest pressure. And without really good glasses, I can't tell you what those two numbers are. I think it was anywhere from 135 to 220. It kind of shows the different spikes there. And that was over a month. And the red line is when the Bow Hill pump comes on. We're trying to see if the Bow Hill pump had a direct correlation with the Burlington side of the pressure going up and down. Next slide, Nick. And now this month, that first one I think was May. This is June. So you see June moving into July, how much more radical the lines are and more pumping. And I think the other numbers, if I remember right, are like 115 and two something. So that shows the 20-pound difference. That's basically lowered the system 20 pounds overall. So having these SCADA sites out there is giving us a lot of great information for modeling and planning and so forth. We are able to gather all this data and look at temperatures and weather and start correlating all this stuff and planning for future line replacements and so forth as well. Next one, Nick. As of this month, the two-man flushing crew has gone through every one of our systems and has touched basically every valve that we have in all of our PUD. All of the remote systems, Mount Vernon, Cedar Woolley, Burlington, have all been flushed. Some of them a couple times based on other issues. It's taken them just over 6 years to get through all the systems and taken just over 73 million gallons to do all that flushing. And we'll start over again and start going back through it all over again. And that's just our routine every 6-year cycle. But maintenance, a couple things on maintenance. The Sky Ridge project, I think Mark talked about those last week. Sky Ridge project was done. The Venture and Martin Road done, of course, we talked about. And then there is a slough, Nick, a creek crossing down in Conway. We had to get out of the way of down by the Conway School, where who's going to divert that water? Ecology. Somebody's diverting a stream through these people's property, and our line was going to be in the way of the ditch, so we had to go and get our line out of the way for this crossing. So we got that done. Most of the rest of the stuff we're doing right now, like I said, it's kind of routine. You guys are clearing the brush and the fence lines at the reservoir. Services and tie-ins, the regular stuff. We've got a report back from the bridge overhead crossing in Cedar Woolley inspection report. We're going to start looking at some of those repairs coming up. Most of it's cosmetic. There's spalling on the concrete. Some vegetation's got to be taken out around the anchor blocks and some of the pillars. Some of these, there's corrosion on the steel, some corrosion on the cables, just minor surface stuff where it meets the concrete. These things look bad, like missing bolt, cracked weld. They're not really that bad. There's little small items on some of the cabling and the safety lines that the person's clip onto going across. There was not a structural study done on this for how much weight the bridge can take. This was just basically a cosmetic survey. So there's things that we need to address, again, like some corrosion and a bolt here and there or a C clamp that's come loose, but nothing that's dangerous or really concerned about, but we gotta do some brush cleaning around it, pressure wash the concrete, fix the concrete patches, and just do a few recommended items on it. The meter head transmitters, that goes on and on. We're still looking at ordering more heads. We're getting about 1 to 200 of those failing a month. We've been getting 200 to 400 every once in a while, so we're pretty well keeping up with them as they die. Sometimes we're 200 or 300 behind or 400, but then we'll get a batch and they'll go out and get caught up again. But we're still losing about 1 to 200 per month. And recently, Brian, we put in an order for 1,000 heads instead. Don't know if it's going to get us any quicker, but we still have 17,000 and some to replace, so it's not going away. The large meter testing is going to start again soon with the Oregon Meter Company. They've now have all the meters 3-inch and above in CityWorks, which has helped tremendously for them to be able to schedule the testing and replacement of them. So it's been great with engineering working with the meters and court and getting all that stuff in CityWorks, so they can do a programmatic testing of them and replacement instead of just going by date and time and here and there willy-nilly. This is a lot better. It's been tremendously helpful to these guys. So as of this year, by having that stuff organized, they're actually a little ahead of schedule on testing than they would have been at this time otherwise. So one of the projects we talked about earlier too is, or last couple of weeks ago, was the resurfacing of the reservoir. We're going to start doing that programmatically every year, put 1 or 2 reservoirs in there, hopefully, that most all of them are getting 20 and 30 years old now, 25, even some of the newer ones. We recoated the 3rd clear well. There should be a picture of that coming up. We're putting freshwater plumbing back to the SRD controls on the pumps. They ran off raw water for a while, and this is going to make those a lot better. The plumbing actually started today. And again, vegetation management at all of our sites, spraying, just routine summer type stuff. And again, if we have to do any kind of overhead repairs that are bigger than what we can do, we'll be soliciting work for those things as well. So there's the top of the 3rd clear well before. Finished here a couple of weeks ago, the new vents, the new coat paint job on there. Did a really good job. We had consultant out yesterday looking at clear well 1, 2, and 3 again for painting the sides and the roofs of those for next year. If you want a 30-year paint job, it's stripping it down to the steel. If you want a 15-year paint job, it's resurface. So it's just a matter of money and time at that point, what we want to decide to do. Go ahead. And again, we got a trailer in there for this year. Go ahead, Nick. So we got 3 of the 5 trucks that we ordered this year showed. We've got those putting canopies ordered and working on getting those on the road. With getting those on the road now, we'll have those 5 are going to replace some of the newer 5 pickups that we have. I'm hoping to turn these over now finally, that we're getting a little bit caught up, and turn some of the 60 to 70,000 mile pickups that look just like that over. We'll replace them with those and try and recoup some of our equity out of those. We still have 2 more yet to show, but they should be pretty quick. And then we also have a bunch of older excess fleet now that COVID's over. We're not riding in separate vehicles to get everywhere. We got some old stuff we're gonna come up and be surplus here soon. I'll come up in front of you guys in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. There's the trailer that we bought that was on the budget to buy for the directional drill. We decided not to buy the directional drill, but we still utilize the trailer for the remote mower and various other things we can haul on. It's got a 14,000 pound rating, so we can haul small equipment on it and vaults and pipe and whatever else. So it's going to be pretty handy regardless of whether we got the drill or not. So we went ahead and bought it mainly for the remote mower, but still has lots of other capabilities besides, due to its size. And we can tow behind a pickup truck, not have to have a service truck or a dump truck every time. And I think that is it. Unless there's any questions.
Is your Voucher deal correct?
You should ask. Andy Cordes, I was talking with Andy Cordes and Terry Needless, talking about we both ordered vac trucks. And he was really excited about his. They got a mid-sized one, but he said that their order got bumped from October to later. And I told him that we were the ones that got the October slot. So they're going to build in October, hopefully by the end of the year. We're hoping. So yeah, Terry was real happy, but it's what it is.
What does it take to bump somebody?
I think the reason why we're able to bump is they're getting a mid-sized one, which is gonna take they probably had to order a cab and chassis. Where the advantage we got is these guys already owned those cabs and chassis, which worked out better for us. So they already have most of the stuff to ready build ours. It's just, once they get one out, they just keep cranking them out. So all the stuff is there for ours, where Terry's might have been a little bit more, had to get some stuff for it, so, yeah, it's all good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, thank you. All right, so. Steph, Mark, are you presenting or Sam?
Yeah, good.
So this is a recommendation to award the campus replacement administration building.
Yeah, so I guess not a whole lot to add to the memo, which we would like to request the building be awarded to Comer Construction for $14,975,000. I guess just a little bit of background information. This has been a pretty long road. Even before I came to the PUD, but really it started in 2017, looking at staff growth, the growth of staff and potential labor forces that we would need for the future. We also did and looked at the capacity of this building. We looked at, we went through the property analysis and looked for different sites. This site, we compared those. And after all that, and we looked at remodeling, portions of the building as well. And so we've done a thorough analysis on this, and we're really excited with moving it forward and the numbers that we've got. Hopefully that's a reflection of contractor. Well, it's definitely a reflection of the times, but it's also hopefully a reflection of contractors wanting to work on our projects as well. So we are looking for authorization for the general manager to sign the contract.
I think I have a few just clarification questions. In the agenda, it discusses kind of the 20 million as being the budgeted amount, and clarification that 18 is for the building itself, and then 2 was for the design and site prep, correct?
Yeah, so to date, we've spent about $2 million,
Okay.
just over. And that's a good point. At the next commission meeting, we would like to bring a construction administration or construction services contract to the board. It'll probably be about $450,000 for inspections and the type of for, I guess, administration that goes along with building the building to review submittals, et cetera.
Okay, so 2 million has been spent already?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other clarification question is that part of the contract that's being awarded is the updates to the
So that's another
operation
million.
portion of the current building.
Yeah,
as well.
our budget for that is $1 million, and that's set aside. That's not in this contract.
Oh, it's not in this.
It's not in this contract. Correct. So the 14,975,000 does not include the improvements for this building.
Okay, so that plus the 2 million that we already spent, we're at 17, and then 1 million would be 18, and then the 500,000 you're bringing to us would be 18.5 out of the 220.
Yeah.
All right, so we'd be looking for a motion to authorize general manager to enter into a contract with Comer General Contractors in the amount of $14,975,000.
So moved.
I second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Just in talking about the budget for the project and how it reflects on our CIP, I don't know if I talked to Brian about this earlier, if he wants to add just some context on how it, now that the transmission line project is mostly done and we spent that money, the building, we know what the bid is, we don't know where it's going to come in, but it impacts our financial plan. And so I thought it might be good for Brian just to make a statement about how it kind of fits in with the money that we have and what our CIP is looking like.
Not too much to add to that. I think this was one of the last big puzzles or pieces to the puzzle. And so we're going into the budget cycle. We'll take the results. It's all positive. We got more low interest loans than we anticipated when we first started this. Like Mark said, in 2017, 2018 is when I started. The financing plan took all the forecasted CIP information, and we've probably just done better on all the positives. So it will definitely push out the need for any financing. That's an easy question to answer. It will also depend on the other projects as we go into the budget cycle and start looking at the capital projects. So on the positive side, low interest loans, we're earning more money on interest than we thought. And then the bids came in very well. So that's all good. And then we'll have some on the other side. All of our costs have increased on operations and for supplies. So we were talking about regs. We're having supply chain issues and price increases. So we'll take all those, put them into the CIP, and also do the operations budget. And then we'll be making a recommendation based on all that information on the financing plan. But right now it's all positive, I'd say. Good.
So would that be a different outlook than the 30-year payoff for our current loan amounts without having to take that additional loan? Because originally that was based on having to take an additional set of loans, correct?
Yeah. So we'll continue to look out 10 years for the CIP. Our loans are all 20-year loans that we've just taken out. And so we'll still be drawing down. We've got all of the retainage left on the loans. So until the project's complete, we're looking at that next milestone for getting the project complete, the paperwork complete. We'll get $2 million of retainage actually still to be as part of those loans. So that'll come to us. And so we'll look all of that into the future. I think for this CIP, we won't need any more financing for that 10-year window, but we'll also look, we just keep going out further. And so there's another section of transmission line that is also on that schedule. And so that'll be the next big project. So timing wise, it'll be contingent upon when that project has to go to. So that's the next one that I know of as far as the real big projects. So we'll have more information as we go into the budget.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear on, yes, we had a really good bid at 14.9 something, but there's still, out of the 20 that we have already spent to, and that we are technically after that 500,000 at 18.5. So we're not quite at that 5 million left over that under.
Yeah.
So more like 1.5. Just trying to gain clarity. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so next up is establishing a water rate and administration fee for the 2023 emergency drought water rights transfer.
Okay, I'll introduce and provide a little bit of an explanation, and then I'm sure there's going to be some discussion and conversation about this, and so Bill and Mark can provide some more details as necessary. But Jenna provided a lot of the context earlier. So the PUD during emergency drought declarations in the last 8 years, we have done emergency water rights transfers to the irrigators in districts 15 and 22. We did it in 2015, 2019, 2021, and it's looking like there'll be another one this year. A drought advisory was issued last week by Ecology, and in talking to staff from Ecology, there's going to be a meeting, I think on July 18th down in Olympia to talk about the status. And so it's looking like it looks like there'll be a drought declared. So in that situation, we normally step up and do interlocals and provide those emergency transfers. And we're expecting to do the same this year. And so through conversations internally and with the board, there's a couple of items that we wanted to address, which haven't been in interlocals before. The two things are an administration fee and a rate for the water that's being transferred. So this item is to talk about both of those and discuss with the board if that's something that you want to do. We haven't written the interlocals yet. We can use the previous ones as reference, but today is to talk about both of those items. And so start with the administration fee. So that's specific to the work that staff has to do in a given year if there's a drought declaration. Bill has done a lot of that work. Wendy also performed some of that work, and it involves, submitting the application to DOE to write up the interlocal, get the pumping records, keep those on hand because we need to report those to Ecology at the end of every year. So we get the pumping records, we hold on to those. The time it takes to report to Ecology at the end of the year. There's hours built into that, and it's not a exact estimate based on staff, but it roughly works out to about $1,500 just in getting that done specific to the transfer.
And we've charged that every time.
No, we have not.
We haven't charged that at all.
We haven't charged that before.
Okay.
So again, through internal conversations and conversations with the board, and really it's emergency droughts they're happening more often. If it's declared this year, it'll be 3 times in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be prudent to discuss it. And if we're going to discuss it, we wanted to give you kind of a ballpark what it might cost. It's about $1,500. We have not billed that before. So we can talk about that first, or I can explain, or I can go into the rest of the explanation. I don't know if Bill, is there anything I'm missing on that? No? Okay.
And does that include the monthly reporting to DOE? Do we as the PUD have any monthly reporting requirements or daily reporting requirements?
We have the pumping that the irrigators do need to be monitored, and we ask for those on a monthly basis, I believe. Is that correct, Bill? No?
Yeah,
Daily?
Good
Okay.
question. I didn't refresh my memory on. I think so. It's pretty rudimentary, the ongoing information during the.
Come on up, Bill.
Sorry, man. Okay.
We've got people.
A whole bunch.
We've got people online.
So I didn't refresh my memory on that, but if I remember correctly, the irrigation districts were shooting email their raw data when they're collecting meter reads from pumping. But the main thing is we have annual reporting to Ecology. That's part of our normal annual reporting for our water rights use.
Water right transfer.
For not all of our water rights, but the majority of them, it's part of our normal process that we transmit our metering data and summarized information. So this gets rolled into that. Adds a little bit of complication. It's not a lot.
But on our monthly,
we don't have monthly
Okay.
reporting to Ecology. We have annual report. The standard reporting is annually to Ecology for most of our water rights.
yeah, I'm just trying to understand the time.
Yeah, it's in January, but we collect the meter information in these instances, they email to us their metering information. We do a QA, QC check, see if it makes sense, summarize it, roll it into our records.
I think Jenna was saying that we ask for that information daily from the
Yeah,
irrigator. So Bill collects the information, holds on to it, and then
that's
compiles it and then includes it in the report. We have to report consumption against every water right at the end of the year. So it depends which one we transfer, because then you need to count that water pumped against that right. So it's more than just our meters. We then have to just take that information and add it to what we count.
Yeah, so that's the summary of it.
Yeah, it works out to like 15 to 20 hours.
Yeah,
of time,
and that's based
something like
on, it's a lean lump sum estimate of the time we spend. There's always a bit of a fire drill when we work with Ecology to get these, the initial orders out of Ecology, where there's a little bit of hectic situation usually because it's down to the wire. We're going through checking all the information to make sure which water right we're using works with how we're utilizing the other ones. For, as Mike talked, we're pumping through the summer, so we got to check all that. There's a little bit of upfront time, and then it's mostly getting emails from Jenna's folks, and we're, like George said, we're just collecting them, and then we wrap it up at the end.
Bill just mentioned something that I didn't talk about, but when the drought is declared, it's usually been part of the declaration that if there's going to be emergency transfers, that staff at Ecology take the applications and they usually have to push through it quicker. And I'm going to get the timeline wrong, but it's like 10 days or 2 weeks or something like that they have to push the application through so it's done quickly. So like you said, there's a fire drill usually every year when something's done, we try and hurry up and get the application in so we can get the transfer done as quick as we can. Luckily, we have the interlocals prepared and it's just kind of editing those in the application. Bill's got to review it all and check all the numbers just to make sure it's all good. But it usually happens really fast. So you've got to like drop everything else you're doing, get that done, get it signed off, and then, yeah, that's the upfront work.
But I would anticipate it'll be mostly boilerplate compared to what we've done in previous years. We haven't talked about volumes, but I presume that it would be similar volumes. And so mostly it's a look under the hood and then reset and do it one more time.
We can move on to the water rate unless there's more questions on admin fee. That's something we can also track with a work order by the hour and bill just based on how many hours are spent as well, right? Like how we do for engineering projects, developer projects. That's another way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Just because of the magnitude of it, that was the recommendation to just do a lump sum.
Yeah.
But
It's easier to manage if we do it that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, then you're adding time to clear, give
Exactly, yes.
then we-
on,
Right.
if you're
Right.
gonna bill somebody in general, you're adding people's time to bill them.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to throw out options in case you want to talk about it when we get to that point. Okay, so that's the admin fee part of it. So let's get into the bigger thing. So Nick, do you want to throw that other table up? So I prepared a little table to help provide some context and reference as we talk about rates. So let's start at the top. You can leave it here, Nick. Just to provide reference. Okay, so can everybody can see that? Okay. So the top table are the consumption water rates that we have on our website. So on the left, you can see there's different tiers of consumption. There's the low 0 to 3 units. Then there's 4 to 100. There's 100 plus. And recently we developed an ag rate. So we've got 4 different rates there. And because the units usually jumble people up, right? Our regular billing is done in hundreds of cubic feet, which we call a unit. I added some columns in here to help provide context. So the middle column, well, the second one from the left is that charge in hundreds of cubic feet. So it's $6.15 per unit for the first 2 levels. When you use more than 101 units, it's 4.08. And the ag rate is set lower than that, set at 371. That's what we decided before. Now, to do the conversion, so you go to the next column, and just because people think about water in terms of gallons, that's what it is in terms of dollars per gallon. It's really low, right? It's like 3 decimal places. So the ag rate is ½ cent per gallon. Then in terms of the water rate that we're talking about for transferring, what large volumes of water, you talk about acre feet, not gallons. So I converted that charge to per gallon to acre feet so you can see what it is. So again, I'll go to the bottom row and talk about the ag rate because that's the group that we're talking about. Just straight. So if you're an ag customer right now and you have a hydrant meter, like Mike was talking about earlier, we've got a lot of hydrant meters out for irrigators using our distribution system, right? It's going up to Judy, going through the plant, going through the system, gets to a hydrant, somebody's using a hydrant meter and they're irrigating their fields. The cost is $1,616 per acre foot. That's what it works out to be at the ag rate, the full ag rate. So that just provides a context on how much people are paying for water in different categories. So what we did is strip off a lot of the things that aren't used, like Jenna was talking about earlier. It doesn't go through our system, right? So there are 3 ways of coming up with a factor if you don't use the whole ag rate, if you just want to use like the bare minimum. There's 3 different things that we've looked at. So you start with the ag rate and then you look at the cost of service analysis we did in 2019. So this is all part of our financial plan that we did in 2019, all of our updates. It's split into the cost of serving all of our water is split into 5 categories in that cost of service analysis. It includes our base demand to provide everybody. It includes a peak demand. There's meters and services, there's fire protection, and then there's customer allocation. So out of those 5, I took the one that is only that I stripped it down as far as I could go, which is the customer allocation. It probably includes more than just admin, right? It includes customer part. It's 13.5%. So that's probably the upper limit and doesn't really reflect how little we do in order to transfer this water, but it's a point of reference. So using the cost of service analysis, it works out to about $218 per acre foot. Now, there's another way we can calculate this, which is using how we calculate our system development fee. So our system development fee, when you charge it to the Judy system, it's the cost to get water all the way to your meter. There's a portion of that cost that we assign to other systems which don't use the Judy system, so that it doesn't use all of that, but there's we call it the general plant. It should say general plant portion. It's just like an admin cost that we use to supply. That's 7.38%. That works out to $119 per acre foot. So that's more of a charge that we use. We use it more frequently than our cost of service analysis. The one that we use most frequently is the third one, the administrative overhead factor. We use that when we come up with estimates for developer projects and other capital projects. And that's 6%. So we do, you guys could probably speak to this better, but we develop an estimate on staff time, engineering review, inspection, all those kinds of things. Our maintenance department to go do the tie-ins, we figure out what all that is. And then the administrative overhead is 6%. So that's just kind of what it takes to run this place, right? Like administration. That works you out to $97 per acre foot. So those are the 3 numbers that we could legitimately defend in terms of we're not treating or distributing the water. There's administrative cost and just running the utility. So those are those 3. And then Bill had a good idea of trying to look at what the market value of water is for irrigation. This is a little bit harder to pin down, and Bill might want to speak to this, but we use a consultant that is involved, in the Yakima Basin. He deals with water rights quite a bit on the east side. And that's where the market for water right leases and water right transfers has been around longer than it has been on this side. So I think this is specific to the Yakima Basin. Is that right, Bill?
Not necessarily. We didn't
Okay.
even get that deep.
Okay.
So this was, we talked with Aspect Consulting that we've been using to support us on water rights, a couple of water rights issues this year. And they didn't specify where it was, but most of the, from my knowledge, and what he did mention, most of the market is on the east side in places like the Yakima Basin, where they have adjudicated water rights and more robust systems. And there's different types. There's a couple different types of water markets. So there's water being traded much more than is happening on the west side. So that was a really broad number, obviously, and it was a way to try to get a crack at an order of magnitude of where the market is. But
How many acre feet are we talking about? 300, how many per month, how many per day?
that's probably less than 100. Seemed
Yeah,
like we were less than 100 last time.
Yeah.
Per day?
Total for the project.
I think 21, there was we extended it, but it was over like a month to 2 month period.
So
And-
even
and
at
the
the
total
lowest,
is 100.
you're looking at $9,700.
If you use that number and what we used in 21, yeah, that's what it would calculate out to be. And that was for both districts, was 100 acre feet used in 21, I think, right?
That's real. It's order of magnitude.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, Jenna, but I could look.
I should have looked a little bit
Yeah.
closer by.
It was in that order of magnitude
20,
for both, for 15 and 22.
Yeah. So the market value range, I think how Dan Haller described it was the floor of the lease market was in the order of $120 per acre foot per year, and the ceiling was $375. Everything in between, he described as, details that make the price go up and down. So how long the term of the lease is, the seniority of the water right, type of use, any other special conditions. So that was the range that he had for us. How simple is it to do it? How much legwork or effort you need to put into it? So that's just the information that we had.
Jenna, did you have something to add?
I have a question, because I called a bunch of Eastern Washington. Oh, is it okay to just,
There's people listening, so there's a mic there that they can hear.
I didn't know if I was allowed to come on.
Yeah,
The commissioner called you up, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I did call a handful of Eastern Washington irrigation districts, and I think the market rate is a little bit different, and I just wanted to clarify. So you're looking at like premium lease rates, like you're putting in high value crop, you don't have a water right, you're going to pay a premium for a lease rate. The actual rates of the irrigation district is providing the water as if you were a customer is less. You're talking $25 to $64 per acre foot. And I just wanted to be clear that we're having an apples to apples conversation in terms of what the market value is. It's a little bit different if you're talking about a lease market versus just a customer market.
Thank
We
you.
we just wanted some other numbers to
Yeah,
check
and-
against.
and
what we
Dan's
had.
great, so.
Yeah. But that's good information. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't feel like where I'm coming from, in my opinion, at this point is because, yes, they are getting more frequent, and we haven't had this conversation as a commission yet in regards to acre fee charges and treating them essentially as customers, because they're not at this point. This is an emergent use of power to be able to transfer a water right, which I agree there's administrative fees associated. But at this point, we have never had a conversation with them to provide this sort of sticker shock. And I also agree that it should be an apples to apples conversation. This is a transfer of water rights to people who already have water rights, not someone who is a customer without a water right. So I just want to make sure that, I would not be comfortable at this point moving forward with an acre foot charge, especially not having the background of, ensuring that we are looking at acre feet charges that are apples to apples in that aspect. I do feel comfortable, however, with a $1,500 administrative fee for this, because there are administrative aspects, and I completely agree with the time associated, but knowing the dollar amounts that, drainage districts work in and diking districts work in, depending year to year, this is, $10,000 is not, is a lot of money in that world. So I really want to make sure that we're working as a community and not imposing financial burdens on farmers that no one's really ready for at this point in time.
Yeah, and I agree. I kind of feel like, though, if we're trying to recover cost, the 1,500 to me seems light on the administration end. So I mean, I don't know. I just feel like I'd be comfortable doing it this year this way, and then maybe we really track, what, get it down so we know exactly what the time is, and then come up with, a new interlocal when we do this, we have to do this again.
So track the admin fee more closely.
Yeah, just our time.
Just the admin part.
Just, everything that is going on here, that we're providing a service, and yeah, we should, get reimbursed for that.
And my concern is that, I mean, I agree with both of you. My concern is this water right has a value, and the value is in the use. And that I'm afraid that we will create exposure for the district if we give it away. And it could be construed as a gifting of public funds because it has a value. Now, the value again is in the use. And so if we don't use it and it's 45 minutes from Skagit Bay, then there's no loss in that. But as soon as someone puts it to use, my fear again is that we've created the potential for exposure. And by exposure, I mean litigation, that we have given something away For which we could have, and we've created a dissimilar situation. So I feel like we ought to look at some kind of, and I appreciate the math, appreciate also the apples to apples. And so if even in the basin, they're $25 or similar, I feel like if we're not in that ballgame, then someone who is opposed to the entire idea would have a very valid argument.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not, the whole idea, I'm understanding it. I think my concern is just making sure that, I mean, this is an emergent concern. We don't have the time to get the $20, the real number that really should be imposed on this sort of a transfer. And so I don't want to just throw that out as spaghetti and say, you know, that number sounds good. It's a percentage of this admin fee. It's justifiable. Well, any dollar amount could be justifiable. And I really think imposing a fee in general, whether we call it a usage and admin fee, is still showing that there is value to this water right, because there is. But I think a generic fee, is less time consuming to be imposing, and we're not billing, we're not we're not spending time and resources in addition by having reoccurring charges as well. So that's another aspect.
Yeah, it just gets back to that. Because the value is in the use, not necessarily, it's like we're buying the light, they're buying the value, or they're paying for that right. We don't track it and peg some kind of a value to it. I just feel like, again, that it's inelegant.
You're saying also the max usage, right? Within that interlocal, you're saying a max usage. So a part of that one-time fee essentially is a part of the one you're paying through this fee, this amount to be a max usage based on these stipulations of the interlocal. I mean, I feel like there is a transaction occurring that is associated with this interlocal that does have a number of acre feet associated with it, and even times at which during, title conditions it can be drawn on. So I feel like in a legal battle, you really could say, well, we did impose a charge. There was a charge for
But the charge isn't attached to the use. That charge is attached to the administrative part. That argument could be made. I'm not as comfortable with it as I am some amount of it makes it more defensible.
Pete, is there anything that you're thinking about in terms of what Andrew's saying?
Well, I think we need to know more. I think that there's a real risk of the litigation that Christian was talking about. If we wind up just willingly giving it away, I think you used a good choice word, defend. We have to be able to defend whatever rate we come up. So I think we need to know more about this apple compared to the other apples that we're comparing it to. And we are entering a phase where I think this is going to happen more often, right? I think droughts are going to keep happening at this clip, or maybe even more. And so I think there's money well spent and time well spent for us to drill down and get real data on what's needed and how we're going to calculate that fee. It is not super clear because we're letting water bypass. I don't know exactly what that water costs us. So I think we need to know more to come up with a defensible number. We can't give it away, and on the other hand, it's we could easily charge too much and have a problem out. So I just think that's not very specific, I know, but I think we can just talk more about what it's costing us to let this water go.
Well, and a couple of farmers I talked with, I really saw it. And again, the water right that the district has is a community asset in the same way that all the infrastructure and everybody else, even non-ratepayers, benefit from a high-performing and well-functioning water utility. Being said, the trend that could then be argued that as part of the discount, right? If we come up with a number and we say, and because as members of this community, we value the agricultural impact and we count that as part of the quality of life, then we are going to specifically and intentionally discount the rate that we ever come up with and say at this, and as being intentional, so therefore more defensible to say, yes, we acknowledge that fair market value of this water right or this usage is this, and we're going to discount it because farming is an important part of our heritage and our quality of life, or however else we choose to define it. To me, that's more defensible, and I think it helps us to be intentional, shows our math a little bit to be able to say, here's how we got here. To Corinne's point, to be able to say, and we don't want to, this is the stepping in to, or what if somebody else wanted it? I don't know what that would look like, because tribes call the Seattle Light, and then a lot of water comes out when the salmon are running, so they don't have it's apples to apples. But I could foresee something in the future where somebody else would want to say, well, you did it for this customer set, well, you won't do it for this customer set, and so therefore additional exposure, hate and discontent, where it could have been avoided if we had these awful conversations earlier. So
Right, so you gotta be careful about the justifications you use to give a discount, or put a value on it or whatever. You gotta really trace your tracks.
So this all came up recently because of conversations that we had, in the last few weeks. And so this was our first meeting since those conversations happened. And we're just trying to get ahead of the drought declaration. If we don't get ahead of it, then then our options are to do the simple thing, do the interlocals, because anything like you guys just said, anything we put in there has to be defensible. So if the meeting happens on the 18th, or if there's a drought declared even sooner than that, and we're going to help, we need an interlocal and we need to put something in there. If we don't have anything, we can't put anything in there. So, I'm not trying to rush it, but it's just like, this is the one meeting we had before that. This is all happening at the same time.
That's kind of why I'm thinking, even to be relatively, defensible, having a flat fee alone showing that we do value this, whatever we label it as, would be better to move forward with now rather than nothing, and be an emergent situation where we had nothing in play to recoup the cost of what we are actually doing.
I feel like the administrative clerical cost, that covers our hard costs of operating this, and then we have to get into the usage cost. I think they're two separate.
I don't think we're gonna come to an agreement on that in less than 10 days, because we don't have another meeting.
Well, if we don't, then we create exposure.
Well, we have to act now for this year, right? I mean, we have to be on our toes and get something done. But moving forward, I think we need to do a lot of work on what it costs us to do this, and put a system in place that we can repeat every year. I think this has been an emergency situation in every sense that in the last several years, and we're doing something to put a number on it. But I fear that we haven't done enough to identify what it costs us and pass that on. For the people, and I think that we need to put something together that's defensible in the long term.
Well, I think my feeling would be, let's do the 1,500 this year. And then go from there and come up with a number that we can all swallow.
I'm not fully opposed to an acre foot charge down the road, but I want to ensure that it's something that is reasonable, comparable, and comparable in every sense, not just dollar bonds. But I agree. I think $1,500 this year will at least have some sort of, asset to lean back on, really defendable, that we are really trying to quantify this and just, again, as we're moving forward with these conversations, is tracking the time. How long does it take? How many people do these papers go through each set of hands? How long does it take for somebody to do the QA/QC on a daily from their meter reads and their metering data?
Like the closest comparison we have is that third line, which is administrative overhead factor for capital projects, because that's just invoices and AP and, you know, collecting a check from somebody. It's like really small things that don't take a lot of time, but it touches a lot of people. There's conversations that everybody had. In terms of everything that we have, that's the closest, but it still doesn't reflect this situation versus a developer project. It would be really hard to come up with something, an acre foot charge separate from this, that we would apply. It'd be a challenge. I don't want to say we can't do it, but we'd have to, I don't know, we'd have to think of something. We have to break down this admin factor even further than what we have it now.
Yeah, I think too, we're, I guess just to complicate it. One thing to consider too, I mean, we're looking at an instantaneous element here. We talk about the cost to administer the bills, right? The invoices, the cost to get the permit going. Well, there's other things that we need to do to keep this, make this available to the farmers. We maintain that water right throughout its lifetime. The applications, the permits, the perfecting of it, providing the water system plan, all those costs are involved as well. And it's kind of hard to get to. Another part of this is just, I think what George is looking at as far as the administrative part of the capital projects. What part of our operation just takes us, what's our cost per gallon? How do we get to that to just keep the lights on and the you know, people employed in the building, you know, all the tools that we need to administer that. It's a tough number to get to with the data that we have.
But again, these are temporary customers in a temporary circumstance, in an emergent circumstance that, I mean, it's hard to even quantify what their percent, you know, stake in the game even is for that water right for 2 months out of every 2 years, you know. I mean, it's complicated. I mean,
Right.
all in all, it's complicated.
Yeah,
I just $97 an acre foot is a lot of money. I don't know, 100, I mean, that's $9,700 in 2 months.
But they're paying $1,600 per acre foot when they pull it from the hydrant, right? So there are irrigators that are paying
There are.
10
and-
times that or 16 times that for the advocate. They made it work right with their math. Crops.
Like the comparison that I make is like when somebody, this might come up in the water policy manual discussions. When people leave and they go south for the winter and, you know, they want their meter shut off. They don't want to pay the basic meter charge. They just want everything shut off and then they come back and they want the water turned on. Well, we've still got to do everything we need to do because if they come back halfway through, the water is available to them. Like there's everything that we have to do, even though they only want the water 8 months a year, we have to make it available 12 months a year. It's the same kind of argument with this. It's a temporary customer. It's only 1 month out of the year, but we need to keep everything going, everything else operational in order to have the water available that 1 month. So that's the analogy I look at it. Because you can't just shut everything down and then to say, okay, we're only going to do the water for 1 month. That's not a realistic cost. You've got to have everything else running in order to make that available that 1 month. So that.
Janet, do you want to answer?
Well, so I kind of had a thought because it's clear that this is an important conversation. So when you talk to Dan Haller about lease rates for ag water, I think one thing that struck me is it's a lot lower than the 16,000 that you currently have as your ag rate. And you could just provide a percentage of the current lease rate, of the going rate for ag lease water based on Eastern Washington. That's the market competition in some of these economics and I'm not in economics, but it's just a thought of a different way to get to a number that's defensible is here's the going rate in Eastern Washington based on Dan's experience. He's by far, one of the state experts. And then because you're not touching the water, but there are obviously costs associated with it, you could then apply one of your percentages that you figured out to come up with a rate that might be a little bit more sensitive to the current situation, which is the emergency drought. It's just a thought, but it just struck me, there's a big discrepancy between Dan's estimate and your current ag rate.
And I appreciate that, because I think there's two math problems and a policy solution here, right? There's the one math problem is administrative that we all agree that we can track and quantify, and I think that's the easy one. The other math problem is what's the defensible number that we can come up with for use, or be that a one time, and I think that may be I don't know, without tracking it and applying some chart. I like the idea of using Eastern Washington numbers as a comparison, even though we're not, but they're definitely from the Columbia and Skagit. But for today, I think that's we're trying to do some back of the napkin now.
It's a touchy call to go with comparing to Eastern Washington. In one sense, our farmers are absolutely competing against them, and so that makes some sense to draw that comparison. But on the other hand, water in Eastern Washington is collected in a different way, and it's more scarce, or than our water. And there's a lot of differences in water on this side of the mountains that need to be. And so, with what we know now, I think that we could go forward with a fair number for this year. But I think, like I said, going forward, I just think we need to know more about how much it costs. From our cost of use, and you're talking about cost of administration. Just we need to know more about what it costs.
And in my mind, as I try to classify this, like the ag rate, and I appreciate the three different, the 13, 6, and 7. That in my mind, I'm chalking that up to pipe water. And I do appreciate that there's the administrative costs of maintaining that and whatnot. And so I'm trying to come up with a non-piped ag water solution that is comparable, that we don't have a lot to compare against, right? In an emergent situation. And so that's the only struggle that I have with using the ag rate, is that those are all based on piped. We're saying, well, actually, this is not piped. And
we never touch it.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet it has a value.
Has a value
to the
because we touch
district
it current.
and the community, right? And because and so that's the part where is it half of that? I don't know. Because then we can there's the rest of the math of how we came up with our ag rate based on that, or do we just use that as the comparable and say, because the rates by which we arrive at our piped ag rate, let's just apply that to a minimum market value of a non-piped acre foot, which we don't have.
That's the hardest part. We don't have a non-potable.
Right. We don't have a non-potable.
Yeah.
For Western Washington, but we do for Eastern Washington, which is apples and footballs. It's not even apples and apples.
You could argue that, yeah, you could argue that water is actually more valuable over in Eastern Washington than it is here, because there's a larger competition base, scarcity, everything. The Yakima Basin Integrated Water Resource Management Plan, look at that alone, took how many years to even.
Lawyers.
And how many lawyers did it take? Still does. Well, I do think this, I appreciate where you're coming from, Andrew, and trying to definitely keep the litigation side of things at bay. I don't feel comfortable with an acre foot dollar amount right now, just because I don't think I have one in mind, even those that I feel comfortable with imposing. But I do think a dollar amount still needs to be come up with. But I do still think that the $1,500 fee should be imposed. And in order to do that, we would have to vote on that today for the emergent situation.
Okay, what about this? So, piped water, right? The four rates on the top are piped water. So the ag rate is 60% of the other highest rates that we have. So you go 0 to 100 units. 16 per acre foot is 60% of the 2680. So I don't know how defensible this is, Peter, but say you take 60% of that admin overhead factor,
That's
the
what I
6%
was- that's what I
admin
was
overhead
thinking.
factor. So 60% of that is 3.62%, which gets you to an acre foot charge of like 58.
Which is what?
Which is still at 300 acre feet, say that's where the agreement max is.
But it's 6% of the piped water cost.
It's,
right?
I'm just looking at, we have an ag rate, we have a consumption rate, and we established a difference between those two rates. We established that ag is 60% of the regular consumption rate. And I don't know, I'm looking for something. I'm just.
That's, I'm glad you went that direction, because now I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'd be really upset if I'm a farmer and I'm paying piped ag water when I could have just dropped a pump in and paid less than 10%.
We had a little wiggle room on the defensibility of it, because you can actually, even in retrospect, be proven wrong and still not be liable, because you had a rational basis for the decision that you made. What you can't do is act arbitrarily or unreasonable. So you can't just willy-nilly, pick a number on the thing and pick it. You have to have a rational basis for how you come up with the figure, even if later it's proven to be wrong. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to make sense and do it in a way that is defensible at the moment. And our moment right now is emerging.
Yeah.
Which, I think that's what we're showing here is a little math in public, which I appreciate.
Math in front of the world.
Yeah. Water math in public, which means you're.
I do want to talk a little bit more about the ag rate, because it seems like something you're interested in. And here's another sort of layer of confusion, but people are making decisions about where they plant crops, in the spring. And if you have a high value seed crop, for example, and you know that there's a chance that there's going to be a drought, you'll opt not to plant that crop, right? Or you'll opt to pick a field where you can get PUD water if you need to save your crop. And then you're willing to pay that. It's a 1 in 20 year shot. And that's different than a little bit of what we're talking about, which is the potato guys, the Vanderkooi of the dairy farmers. It's a different, people are making decisions based on different economics, and it can't just be like, oh, one off. And again, it's just really making sure that we understand the conversation. The districts, their irrigation improvement districts, they're special purpose government, and they have an obligation to, they have the authority to provide water for irrigation, but they don't promise it to anybody. So the people that are farming in these districts are making decisions, understanding some of that risk with the ability to use generated water and use junior water rates. So there's some of that calculus that just goes into it automatically, as opposed to just sort of everyone's farming the same thing all the time. People have advantages and disadvantages. I just kind of wanted to, hopefully that makes it a little bit more clear.
For me, I think I'd be comfortable with that. The 60% of
The administrative overhead, the
Still
lowest.
58. Still
Yeah.
$58.
58 an acre foot is what it came out to be. What was the range that you had, Jen? Was 25 to 64?
Yeah, I called Rosa, which is Yakima Integrated Plans, and they said 64 per acre foot. They're on the high end of that range, but it is different. East Columbia Basin was 25. So that's kind of brackets the range, and then you've got a whole variety of Kennewick and Kittitas. They all kind of fall in the middle, and I guess I would encourage you guys to do your own work if that's where you're headed. But I was definitely interested in the irrigators. Like, well, in Eastern Washington, you're paying less as a customer within an irrigation district. You're getting the water delivered, but it's different in Eastern Washington. You've got Bureau of Reclamation's Columbia River project, so there are a lot of differences. So it's definitely a complicated issue to land on a price. But I do think the ag rate here, you're paying for some services that some people are willing to pay. Fresh market produce guys, they need clean water. Other types of farmers don't have those same health concerns, so they don't. But then the market then reflects the higher price in water as you have a higher value crop. So it is complicated, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. But I think Eastern Washington is probably a better base to start with, just because it's irrigation water supply and not municipal water supply being sold at an ag rate.
Right, and I thank you, and I think it, which is very useful in this whole exercise of arriving, and appreciate everybody listening to me sound this out, because it really is that, we're in a non-potable, but if we can use, at least there's thought that went into how we came up with the ag rate at a 60% less than, if we apply that, we're back to the part where I like the idea of it being defensible.
Then you're at 58 times, if they use 100 acre feet, $5,820. So at that, that's still, we're talking about low value crop.
Not necessarily.
Because spuds are not low value.
It is really complicated too, because the way the District 15 would use the water is to supplement their reservoirs. So a lot of people are going to benefit from that water, but with the tidal condition, you don't achieve that full benefit. And if this goes on another 2 or 3 weeks, there's a chance that their reservoir is depleted. And now with the tidal condition, you wouldn't be able to recover your reservoir from top to bottom so that people could irrigate off of it. So there's even at $58, it might not pencil out, because the benefit has to be there, and the benefit is changing rapidly as conditions on the ground change rapidly. And with the tidal condition, that's another consideration. If they're buying something, could the PUD provide it 24/7, or are we still going to have tidal conditions? That's another thing to factor in. Like, your level of service with the tidal conditions isn't the best. No offense. And I understand why you do it, but you don't ask people to say only drink water between 3 hours of high tide. Does that make sense? So I think there's definitely some complexity here, and just the physical conditions on the ground start to factor in terms of the benefit of a potential transfer. For Island's in a little bit different situation than District 15 for a lot of reasons.
What is the reasoning for the tidal condition?
It's something that was factored into the original transfer, where multiple parties came together to come to an interlocal. And so it was important consideration to one of the groups, one of the partners. And to change that, it would just be.
We don't want to do that.
It would be harder to. It would still go through. I guess it would influence our relationships.
But I agree, if you're paying for a service then, and you have conditions associated with it, so then why am I paying?
So it needs to be discounted again?
Yeah, there we go. How about another 60% of that? Down to $29.30 or $29 and something.
No, it was part of a negotiation, I guess is what I would say. And so it wouldn't be good for us to just unilaterally change it. I don't think that would be good for us.
to ask you questions.
Yeah,
I'm a
it's
newbie.
part of the elements of, one of the elements of the non-potable factor. Because if it was piped, it wouldn't be an issue. So you can use that anytime you want.
Correct.
So it's an availability. An infrastructure fee. Well,
I still motion that we do $1,500 this year and we have further conversations to really get a reputable number to move forward with on acre feet in the future. That is representative and I mean,
yeah, I really feel like there needs to be some minimum usage. Attached to the two, there are two different fees, there are two different costs here. One is associated with administrative clerical, and I think the other is associated with the usage.
That was a motion, though. We should recognize. the
Yes,
motion.
yeah.
Because-
So motion-
Okay, all right, so
So your motion was to do
to
the
move forward with
administration
15
fee,
The administration fee and. At this
but
time.
no
for this-
rate fee.
No rate fee.
I'll second your motion. Further discussion? You wanna-
yeah, I just feel like there should be a usage fee attached.
Yeah.
Be it minimal, and by minimal, I mean passing the avoiding the exposure to the district, you know, and this conversation clearly indicates that we take it seriously and want to move forward on that. But knowing that there is a value attached to that.
And can we continue to work on this moving forward? I mean, this is an emergency situation right now. I want to make sure that our clerical and, water usage is covered. But I think we need to continue to talk about this and really get to that.
Well, I like the idea of that, to a rate that would be determined in the future, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That the retroactive rate to be determined in the future. I mean, that's gonna put. That's gonna create an open loop, I think, with the districts, right?
Are you guys allowed to call special meetings or continue this meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a solution that might allow a little bit more time than just tonight. That optimistically, the drought gets declared next Tuesday. That'd be the earliest that I've heard. They were supposed to meet today and declare the drought, and it got pushed off a week. So I don't know that helps your immediate, and I definitely appreciate the conversation, but it's something that special purpose districts occasionally do, like during a flood emergency, for example, they will make decisions in a special meeting. Your attorney's here, so.
Yeah. Well,
We do it all the time.
yeah, I would support that motion if. With the addendum that we're at a usage rate discussion to be determined. in future-
Usage rate,
To be determined. At a future time, I don't know.
Prior to establishing an interlocal or.
No, I think we could proceed with that, but we just need to track the usage and then.
yeah, we have to track the use.
We'll track the usage and then attach a charge to be determined at a future time based on staff work. I mean, I think that's, but then we turn around and do the work of figuring out.
So in the interlocal, so you're saying in the interlocal, put the admin fee, but
And
don't put in a rate,
just
say that it's to be
rate.
calculated. Is that something that? people
That's
would
what I
sign?
said, like, that's the part
They're
where.
not gonna sign that.
I don't.
Well, that's what I
know.
said. So we created another open loop there, but we're.
No, I'm talking about for a future interlocal. I'm not talking about for this one. Because I already motioned that $1,500
Okay, so
to move forward with this interlocal in particular.
for this year,
For this year, for this interlocal, the $1,500 fee, and we need to strategize for future interlocals.
so realistically, we've had
Could we
good
get some-
discussion here tonight about it. I think we're getting closer to something here. I feel like within the next 10 days,
Somebody will come up with a bright
come
idea.
up with something.
Well, yeah, just if we can figure out what the fair market value of our non-potable per acre foot is.
We can keep looking into it. can't promise we'll come up with something.
What's the Willamette charge? But I mean, if we
Yeah.
can just expand it out and say, okay, here's what goes on. Here's the Fraser, here's what the Willamette, here's what and just bring some comparables to the table, and then we can turn around and say, okay, based on the already established algebra of arriving at our ag water rate here, we'll apply that to a non-potable rate, and then I would say that's both defensible and something that it can be factored into future. And I do appreciate that this is something that farmers, again, it's legalized gambling, and when there's a variable that can be accounted for, it's nice. It's rare. But moving forward, if we can then turn around and tell farmers, hey, here's your piped ag water rate, and here's a non-potable pulling from the river rate. Now there's two factors that are more defined than the price of diesel and fertilizer. So congratulations. I don't know.
We can do that. We can just assume that we're going to meet next week, on the 18th. We have availability of the room, and we can do that, and then we can keep working on it, come back and see if we have anything else. If we don't, then we're still back here. But if we have something that we can.
I wonder, and could we do that I wouldn't even need to be a work session, but Jenna, do you think you could get growers or district commissioners to the table so that we could actually?
It'd be a meeting just like this. We have to call a special meeting because it's not scheduled, but it'd be just like this.
I just feel, but I mean, I would like to have them at the table if we, don't just do the admin fee, because I think it's unfair to say, hey, to be determined the dollar amount that we're going to end up charging after you've already used the water. Now we're going to hit you with $10,000 of usage is ridiculous. So, I mean, I don't know.
But we also can't charge zero when we know it's the cost of some kind. So it seems to me that we act on what we know. Come up with a number between now and next Tuesday. And like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to have some defensibility based on what you know at the time. So I think an admin fee plus some usage, if you have nothing tied to usage, you're asking for trouble. But if you have some small de minimis amount, so that somebody at least is tracking and paying for a huge amount of water that they're using. And then in the next 12 months, come up with a more scientific basis to find it out. I don't like the idea of just charging admin fee and leaving it to just be used without that account.
Oh, $15. Take your admin fee divided by 100 acre feet, and there's your $15 per acre foot charge for administrative fees associated.
My concern is that might be seen as arbitrary, because the math that we've already done on is 60% of the fair market value. So the 15 and the 60.
And
so it's back to that
hundreds of ballpark of what we thought they used in 21. I don't know what it was in 19 or in 50. So we could go back. That's some of the stuff that we could look at, right? How much was used, and if we want to factor that into it. But if that's the way we want to go, you could table the motion and just expect that we do a special meeting, raise a tape, just table it. And then we just do a special meeting, and then we deal with it. Then we come up with more information.
Yeah, well, and then just because we're in the meeting and it gives us something to think about, I kind of like where Joe went with if it's $58 an acre foot, that factors in that, and then we use that as the point of negotiation moving forward. If we say, and then what we don't know is the non-potable. So that's it. If we can come up with a per acre, a fair market value of a per acre foot of non-potable, and then apply the math as it's already been established, or bring in new policy discussions based on the emergent, because that's what is different is the emergent nature as opposed to the standard water rate for ag. I feel like those are factors that are both defensible and can be sounded out.
Emergent and the title, and the availability and like convenience of usage is a consideration.
Yeah.
Because it's a not, I mean, it's not as though there's no stipulations upon the usage itself.
You find tabling your motion for 1 week?
Why don't you just say no?
Or you can just vote on it if you want.
You
Doesn't mean you have to. Does that mean you have to vote yes? No.
All right, so,
Can I move the table her motion?
I need to vote on the
I
first.
recommend tabling motion. Take it up again.
Well, I move that we table.
Well, we've got a motion and a second on the floor for $1,500
And no rate fee.
and no rate fee, correct?
Does she made the motion, does she have to table it, or is that the president?
Why don't we just vote on it?
You can vote on.
Let's just vote it.
Vote
All
on
in-
whether it's-
All in
So
favor,
I just want to make this clean.
yes, all in favor of $1,500. No usage charge.
I'll say aye and then you guys.
And all opposed,
Aye.
aye. All right.
So now we get a fresh set of downs.
That passed.
Let's-
So I move that we table the discussion until a special session next week on the 18th. I don't know if you're the one who has to call for it, or a special meeting and invite the Dyke and Drainage districts that are so affected. We need a motion for that, okay.
Yep. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Also at 4:30.
Yeah, we'll do it at 4:30.
And I'm out of town that day, so I will be on Zoom.
On the 18th? Okay. Still participate.
Oh, yeah, we don't have a policy on Zoom, do we?
Well, we're making them on the fly.
We should make a policy on the fly.
This is gonna be our only item on the agenda. Will it be this, right? Because it's a special meeting.
Yeah, if I can get Celsius. It'll be the other day.
When you coming back?
We got all next week.
Oh,
Gotcha.
All right, so
Satellite phone.
with that.
We need an emergency motion to allow the president to attend via Zoom.
So what happens, so sorry, what happens if the emergency proclamation or the drought proclamation occurs? I mean, when is it scheduled for?
18th is the meeting.
Is the meeting.
Yeah,
So it won't be before then,
That's my.
but that's not guaranteed though.
because that's my concern is that we haven't agreed on anything.
Hmm.
And when the emergency proclamation happens, then we still haven't agreed to give them water. Under any circumstances.
That is correct.
So that's my concern.
1 week.
It's 1 week.
Okay.
So I don't know if you just need to discuss if you want to participate via Zoom at the next meeting, and if the other commissioners are okay with it, then,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
As long as you agree that
Yeah.
that's something that's okay.
yeah, I move that we allow Joe to participate in the next meeting via Zoom.
And I second.
Motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, okay. Make sure I bring my,
Yeah, the atmospherics may have opposed with
All right.
Starlink.
on to agenda item 9. Is review and discuss water policy manual updates.
All right, here we
Well, I'm all
go.
for that.
Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
Now that you're all warmed up.
Yeah, we're ready.
You can't leave now.
And this is what happens when you have two of the shortest meetings in a row, followed by.
All right, we will go until you can't take any more, and then we'll dismiss everybody. Everybody can leave, actually. It's, I'm used to clearing the room. It's, never go on after a dog show or a kid show. 2.5, please, Nick. This is where we left off. 2.5. All right. 2.5.2 just clarifies the responsibility of maintenance, which is still at the box. However, if the district has had to put in specialized distribution equipment, usually a PRV type piece of equipment, they are responsible for that, even though it's on their side of the box for maintaining that. That's just clarifying that. You can keep going. Safeguarding district facilities. We have just clarification and word smithing in there and a little bit of cleanup all the way down to 2.6. This section is highlighted and talks about sponsors and standpipes, and is now no longer in function. So the district had 3 or 4 sites that the ag community could get water from that was maintained, and they had a sponsor, usually a group of farmers that would maintain and report the usage to us. These have all been removed, and so the proposal would be that we take all of this section out of manual. If there is this situation, just like we're talking about today, it would be dealt with by the board and the general manager on a one-off basis. So would all be removed.
But I wasn't the only one that knew what a sponsor was.
Yep.
That was in my list of questions here.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. We had to tap into the brain trust of Mike Fox and go back to the original resolution on that one. 2.5.5 cross connection control. You've also been involved in the cross connection control policy, which is Appendix F. So this is just cleaning up some of the verbiage. And 2.5.6 changed his to there for just making it neutral. That's 2.7.2 seasonal water service, mobile park. This one we may be able to remove. We haven't clarified internally, Mike, Bill, and George, if this section is totally necessary anymore. I think it had reference and actual users in the past that it was created for, but we'll say to be determined on that one. I'll come back with more information. Bill, do you have it's temporary.
That was the specific one. That was before I was involved at this level. Mark, I know you were here. That was the more specific to
Hydroseeders.
Hydroseeders.
highly mobile type.
We haven't seen a lot of that use. So
Seems like it could be streamlined if that was desired to get more, to what was it, 2.7.1 before the temporary water use. Yeah.
I'll pull that one out just for time tonight, and we'll come back on if we need another session on that and clarify it.
But yeah, you could combine that because they do have a lot of overlap, the short term and then the hydroseeders.
Okay.
yeah, and we really haven't seen the use out of the hydroseeders since the fill stations.
Yeah, right.
And this requirement was in place.
It's kind of just leave it in there and in case it happens again, or we can remove it and deal with it as a one-off at that time. Like we would have a request and bring it to the board as this is a special need. So I think we can go all the way down to 2.8 then, which is dispute resolutions. And sorry, if you guys have any of your own notes, just let me know or jump up, say something.
You're going to where all my notes are.
Yep. You were good. You preempted me on brought that to our attention. So dispute resolution. The first thing that this does is this is the only place in the water policy manual that we talk about dispute resolution. So one idea was to specify and add leaks so that the leak adjustments would be highlighted here as a portion of it if it's necessary. The language is pretty clear. It's basically anything that you're dissatisfied that hasn't been resolved by staff or the general manager. The ultimate final place to discuss that would be with the board at a board meeting. And then it goes through those. So that was one idea. We just clarified the verbiage, and then a proposal was to add leaks if we think that's necessary. And then a lot of the conversations that were had prior to the meeting was on the length of time and the scheduling and the requirements. It looks like it sounds like this is what it would take to schedule it, and it's really not. It's put in here to shorten and make sure that it actually happens in a timely manner. So the one example we had, they would schedule and not show up, or they didn't schedule, and so it dragged on. And so the terminology and the links here are really to make sure that we can continue to move forward in that time. And during the time of dispute, we won't take action. So it's to keep it condensed into a reasonable amount of time, if that answers those questions.
Can you go down to the next page, Nick? Just to, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. What was it?
So I think my only concern is the conflicting number of days between the appearance date and the appearance request, where it was made a minimum of 8 days prior to the desired commission meeting, and then the general manager will set the date within 10 business days. So technically somebody would think that they could get on, even though George still has 10 days to review and schedule their appearance. Does that make sense? Where it says 8 days, but maybe that should be 10 days as well. Because if they have 10 days before the desired meeting, and then you also have 10 days to schedule it. They would.
Do you even need that 8 business days at all?
Well, I think it was put there because we prepare the agenda.
Yeah.
And it's to give us enough time. So this is going on the opposite side. It's to make sure that we can get it on that agenda. And we're asking for 8 days notice. So we prepare the agenda basically the Friday of the week before. So that's almost Tuesday to Friday.
That's more than 8 days.
It's more than 8 days. So again,
I feel like it'd be enough that the GM would set the date for the appearance within
10 days.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's setting up a false expectation for the customer to say that, okay, I gave it to you 8 days ahead of that specific meeting, and that's why I'm here, so I should be on that meeting agenda.
All right, so we could take out that whole paragraph or the whole bulleted 8 day period and just leave it the 10 days for
maybe some of that could be kept under the appearance date. Yeah, you can decide.
Okay.
Because each appearance request should include a description, like that, all that stuff could stay.
I'd say keep that and then get rid of complex office located and just put the Mount Vernon office or main office.
You can combine those somehow.
Oh, it's actually up here too. Yeah. Okay,
And yeah,
it's actually on there twice. So 8 days, 10 days, 8 days, 10 days. That's interesting. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on that? Comments? All right.
So I'll just mention one thing about this. So when customers have issues, the stuff that's shared a lot, and Brian gets it, but you guys also get them, where a customer's unhappy with something and they don't know about this. And so this is one thing that we try to tell people, that if you want to come to the board, you know, this is what you need to do. So it's in our water policy manual. It's not at the top, but if you look at the table of contents, it's there. It's listed. So, you know, we were trying to refer them to the policy manual so you have recourse to come to a meeting. It's not very often people take us up on it, but we try to let people know. It just doesn't happen very often.
I like the new wording on 281 where it says customers and other affected people have the right to, and it just makes it way more clear and concise. You have the right to appear before the board
Yep.
and you will be scheduled within 10 business days of you receiving it. I think it cleans it up a lot.
Okay, do you want to highlight leak policy in that? Nick, if you scroll up or not, do you think it's covered in all other district business really is what it was there? I put it on there just as a question mark to refusal to deliver water, connections, customer to pay for water. I mean, it pretty.
Yeah.
I feel like that's consistent with the list of
Yeah, it
reasons they would need to come forward.
So
Leave it,
Leave it.
include it in there.
include it.
Oh, include it.
Leave it.
Okay.
Yes, leave it out, leave it in, yes. Please include.
Yeah.
Okay, reference to the leak
Okay, all
adjustment.
right. So I will just put in something about leak policy then.
Yeah.
All right. I think, Nick, we can jump all the way down.
Oh, I have it. Sorry, I have a question. I just have a long note here.
Yep.
How long after appearing in front of the commissioners do we have as commissioners to provide the final decision? It wasn't quite clear if that's in there or not.
I don't know if you need to specify that.
Do we,
No, we
it's
don't.
not in?
No,
there?
I wouldn't,
Okay,
I
cool.
wouldn't set yourself on a.
No. If it's not in there, I'm not gonna look for it.
Because what would typically happen is that you would hear somebody out
We'd have to.
and then you'd ask one of us to collect more information so you could look at it. You might want to discuss it some more. That might drag on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if you want to box yourself in.
Vic tonight was a good example of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, great.
flexibility is good.
I like it.
And I think it's important too. I mean, anyone can come to any meeting and speak publicly
Mhm.
at the beginning for comments. But that's not the time to respond to a dispute or
Right.
try to resolve something. It's to listen to them, and that would be the perfect opportunity to say, Brian, George, Brian, Sharon, go get all the information and tell us, what has happened in this. The formal resolution is when they prepared and are going to be scheduled as an agenda item. And that would be their opportunity to say, this is what happened, this is why we're right, this is why we're wrong. And then you still don't have to give them a decision that night, but you might have comments, kind of like Jenna was tonight. This was kind of an informal agenda item, I would call it that. So very distinct. We tell people they can come to any Tuesday meeting, but if you have something that you want on the agenda, you have to go through this process. And that'll be George and Shannon to schedule that, if that helps.
Yep.
Okay. I think then we get all the way to the good stuff, which is 3.2 billing. So in the billing section, this is where the water policy manual update started and then grew to include the other chapters, but we added responsible party to the language here and are going to standardize that. So I mentioned last time through COVID, we had a lot of moving in and out, and so we lost track of who the responsible parties were, and it made it very challenging at the end with a big bill when the moratorium finally ended. So we're clarifying that the names that we recognize, the district, not them on the tenants or lease or anything else, but it's who we have on our records as the responsible parties will be responsible for it. We are going to encourage more than one person, so this will also help them in the case of a spouse or a partner that dies. We want both people on the account so that it'll be easy to transfer to continue service. So that's been an issue in the past. We're just going to clarify that. We also add clarity to the notification that it could be electronic bill presentment or a bill, but we are not going to accept that they didn't get it or didn't receive it. I didn't open my mail. All those are just going to be outlined here, that it's their responsibility to provide not only the person, but the address and to keep us updated if it changes. So that takes on their responsibility and obligation for doing that. Let me see here. You know what? I skipped over a little bit, but I went straight to 3.2. My pages were out of sequence. Sorry about that.
I wondered what you were.
Yeah, 3.1 Sorry, it talks about the meters, installations and the different types of service that we have, type 1, type 2, type 3. We did make the language consistent. Sorry, Nick. Yeah, try to keep me on track. We added some of the same updated language, reference to Appendix A, developer, contractor. You scroll down a little bit further, we've added remote read device to make sure that all of these are, again, that's terminology from the old, you had to get out and actually read the meter, to now we go around and read them by a handheld or in the truck, not AMI by any means. We're just adding the clarity there. Special meters, sorry, on the next page. This actually, tonight's conversation is also important. So we talked about the 3-hour window. We also talk about when hydrant meters are used and when we recommend them. And so far, we haven't had strong enforcement of any of those use of the meters. But as we've talked about for the prior hour and a half, droughts are becoming more common. The system in Mike's presentation earlier are being impacted by pressure zones. So we are prepared and have that in the water policy so that if we need to start enforcing or asking, we're making sure that they're using them as they were intended. We are still covered in the water policy manual with those type of items. Then we got to 3.2 in the billing, sorry. And I think we covered that. Notifications. 3.3 is payment and application of payments. So a lot of these items were things that we were already doing by practice, but weren't spelled out in a water policy in any way. And so we apply them to the oldest bill first, we apply them to penalties first, and we just specify that that's the way that the payments will be applied to a bill. It removes confusion and challenges by customers if they feel that we should be doing it differently. Automatic withdrawals, again, it adds clarity and criteria for me, the finance manager or designee, to authorize automatic payments. It's something that we've been offering to customers. It's just not been put into a procedure or the policy up till this point, or we're clarifying what was already being done in the policy. So credit and debit cards, these are kind of things that we also are standardizing. We have people that say, well, the ACH didn't go through, you can't turn my water off. And this is saying that any non-payment, NSF check, ACH payment, anything that's not in our bank account is going to consider as not being paid. So again, it's all things that we've had to deal with in customer service on the last couple of years of just experience and clarifying that. And then extended pay program. This is really for, it's not payment plans. We don't have payment plans, but it is exceptions in the short term, hopefully less than 30 days, to a person who might need that time to get a social security check or a rent check, any sort of one-time exceptions that we can extend the shut off with a promise to pay. So originally I had put in during COVID, we notified the board that we were doing payment plans with the new heat moratorium. They are also making that part of the criteria. So it's a balance on if we want to spell it out and actually have it in the policy, or come to you when we need to do that. But this is the exceptions, just short, not extended, not 6 months. We're still, Sharon, have we gotten through all of our payment plans now from COVID? We were very generous and extended those payments, not only the moratorium and the shutoffs, but we gave people extra time to work through them. And Community Action has been a great partner. They've actually, it's about $169,000 in total pledges that we've received through Community Action, which is state and federal dollars, specifically for COVID relief and utility payments. they have a little bit of funds left, and we are continuing to ask people to go there and to apply, and they are speeding up their process. But that would be one, this week we had they're going to be shut off, go to community action. So we would extend the deadline as a short term until they can get processed and community action can give us a response. So that's the type of short-term extended payments that we have. Again, it's things that we were doing, but it puts a little bit more parameters and criteria sideboards around what customer service can do, what I can do, and then when we'll notify George and the board. So it just gives us that flexibility. The service fee for return payments. Again, I think I talked about it. It's a service fee on all non-payment it used to just say checks, NSF, but it applies to ACHs or electronic payments, or even if they do a credit card payment and it pulled back, we've even had those happen. So as soon as we know that it doesn't extend your shut off notice again, it's still in effect. Let's see, 3.4 past due accounts. Again, this outlines our process. The responsible party, they have 18 days for the billing to pay. After that point, we send out a delinquent notice, and that adds another 14 days to it. After the delinquent notice, they'll get a final notice, which is the 7 calendar days. And with our billing cycles being on 2 months, you're really out to about a 58 to 62 day cycle from bill date to shut off. And then we also have 2 IVR notifications in addition to that we do and has been very successful during COVID. When people they get that notice, they get a phone call, and it's amazing how fast the online payment takes off and we see action. So a lot of people maybe don't even open their bills, but they get an IVR and they pay. That's habit forming, I guess. Late charges, $5 or 2%. It gives a little bit of discretion to waive that by the finance manager or customer service if they have not had a penalty or a late fee in the prior 12 months, and or we can get them to sign up for auto pay. I use that a little bit to incentivize people. So if they get onto that auto pay system, just makes it that much more regular. So that's a little bit of discretion.
Right. Do you know how long that fee has been $5? Any idea?
Yeah, I helped put it in place. Yeah. A year, probably been 10 years.
Yeah.
So what do you know what it was before that? Or was it 0? Okay, so you started at 5. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a quick question on the calendar days. So the past due date shall be 18 days beyond the bill date. And then down here, it says it will be applied to the customer's bill for all unpaid balances 14 calendar days beyond the bill due date. So the past due date's 18 days, but the late fee is 14 days.
It's the next one. So you have 18 days it's bill to pay, and if you haven't paid, then we send out another notice that adds 14 days to it, and it's cumulative. That's how you get out to like 60 days between your bill to the actual shut off. So it's 18 plus 14 plus 7.
No, I mean for the late fee. The late fee says 14 calendar days beyond the bill due date. So if it's 14 calendar days beyond the bill due date, yet the past due date is 18 days beyond the bill due date.
14 days.
But it says, mine says 18. Water bills.
That's the bill date.
Oh, the bill date.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I read that bill due date or whatever.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was trying to make all the terminology the same. So if that's still confusing, let me highlight it. So, and we just updated our letters. And so again, it is the way that the letters read and making sure that exactly what you just had, the bill date and due date and the past due amount is as clear as we can make it, and still differentiate them. So if that's a little bit confusing, I'll take another.
Sorry, I just
Yeah.
inserted due date.
The other thing, I guess this would be the big policy discussion. So just like the late fees, we had an internal discussion about should it be raised? It's been in effect for a long period of time, so other PUDs are up to $10, and that could be part of this discussion. The other discussion that's more of a policy is we do not charge it on commercial accounts. And so we ever charged late fees on commercial accounts. One was because of our system, and two was because they bill every 30 days. But we've been for this discussion to make sure that we can internally and our system can apply that. So commercial accounts are billed every 30 days. For the most part, it hasn't been an issue. We monitor those, and because it's every 30 days, Sharon calls a lot of them and we are getting payment. However, during COVID, people have maybe slid into, instead every 30 days, into a 40-day. We always get payment, but they're a little bit slower. And then now we have another example where an apartment house has an apartment manager, they hire the property manager, and then they hire another utility billing firm, and we are 3 people removed from the owner, and they are not as timely. And so we've spent a lot of time looking at the accounts and the type of accounts. It's apartment houses, and it really is going to be a problem because now during the moratorium, heat moratorium that we'll talk about, residential users, end users, regardless of that history or all the people in between them and us, are going to have the right to get their water turned on or make sure that they don't go without water in a heat moratorium. So the newest recommendations is that you treat all, now when the law came out, I was saying that's not a residential end user, that's a commercial user, it's an apartment house. That's not what the Attorney General, is recommending and has indicated. So we're going to have to look at that, and we might get there tonight if you want to stay later, about that whole moratorium. But that's just one example of, I think it's time that we do charge a late fee on commercial rates, on commercial accounts. That would include apartments, and hopefully.
I think it's time to do it, because if you're gonna treat them the same.
Yeah.
On the shut off side, I think just treat them the same.
Yes.
On this too.
So I want, just be aware, I think we need to do that. There are some very large commercial accounts that this 2% fee on a monthly bill, if they are late, is going to be thousands of dollars.
Oh, you're saying, but this is with the 2%. I was
2%,
thinking about doubling.
whichever, So,
okay.
so it is not inconsequential, just like we were talking about before. I mean, it is real dollars for large accounts. What I would recommend is that we still do it, and we're treating everybody equitably, but we need to give them advance warning. So we would do this, we would notify our customers if that's a policy decision that we do, and then we would start it maybe as of January and give people a couple months lead time and notify them through the newsletter and on our website and insert, even if we did that. So
I guess a 2-part question, and Kevin might need to chime in,
Yep.
but like, what is the fee supposed to cover? So we got $5 or 2%. Like, I agree with you, Brian, 2% could be a lot on a big bill, but what's it meant to cover? Because then 2%, somebody could argue that it's arbitrary because my bill is bigger, doesn't mean you have to do any more. So how do we define what that charge is for so that we can explain it better?
well, we're also required by law not to charge more than they're allowed. So it's more of a standard business practice, not a recovery. I think the verbiage in here is, yeah, to recover costs, but I would look at it more as just to make sure that they pay on time as a penalty, and that's the way it is, not to recover costs. So it goes more to, we know that people pay, but they pay at 40 days instead of 30 days. It's not it's a cash flow issue, and they're using us as a bank, not the other way around.
Because 2% on a regular residential bill is less than $5.
Yeah.
So it's more often than a residential, it's going to be $5, but on a commercial, it's definitely going to be more.
Yeah.
So I just trying to make it adjust or equitable based on the size of the bill, right? That's what that 2% is for.
Yeah, but it would be not doable to have a sliding scale to try to say that the penalty is equitable on a $50,000 a month water bill and a residential
Yeah.
28. I can't get there mathematically in our system, so we could do a different percent, but it's not going to be this.
So is this taken from like an RCW, or is it some other kind of
We're limited on how much we can charge by an RCW.
RCW?
Yeah. But this is, I would say that it's either 1% a month or 2% a month, and then $5 or $10 is what industry PUDs are charging. When we have a survey from Waputa survey from, was that this year or last year? I think it's older. 40.
Whoa, so what is the max? Is it percentage or is it a dollar amount?
I don't think there is on a dollar, but a percentage there is.
It's 2 or no?
Well,
$5 would be more than 2%.
Yeah, the greater of is the way we can do it.
So would you change the wording for commercial if you can do 1% a month?
Or would you just change the 1%, the 2 to a 1, and turn the $5 to $10?
I like that.
That's simpler. I like it.
I think it's
Yeah.
$10.
$10 and 1%. Because then the 1% on the large commercial is like a little bit more palatable, maybe than 2.
I don't know if we can change in that commercial one rate like that.
No, they'd all be a 1.
They'd all be a
Their
1%.
proposal, I like we need to be the same.
Standardized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say review all your commercial users and then,
okay. We'll,
but I mean, if we're not using the 1% for most residentials, then it's more so targeted to commercial anyways, or leak, or people who had a leak situation
That didn't
or whatever that didn't pay.
Yeah.
The goal is really to get people to pay on time, but I can tell you that we get a lot of late fees, so it's $90,000 a year on the residential that we collect on average for late fees. So, and
So do we want to maybe break for the evening?
Yes.
What? Oh, come on, let's keep going.
Nick's falling asleep over there, so I don't know if we can.
yeah, that was
And on a win. That's what I like to say.
yeah, 3.4.
Well thought.
We're so cool.
3.47 is where we are. Yeah, that's good. We can stop right here. I think.
Yeah, the two most, I mean, the ones that I have most questions are on the heat advisory and then leak adjustments. I think those are gonna be longer conversations anyway.
And be thorough, like I said, and, one of it's just clean up. There's new policy and it's good. All right.
And we were talking earlier, this is, I feel like, the most transparent way of doing all this. Because this is the stuff that people question.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just really important to do it during a meeting. I know it drags it out, it takes multiple meetings. But it's all done, it's all recorded. people can rewatch it later on our YouTube channel, so it's, you know, I feel like it's the best way to do it, so. It might take longer though, so Brian's gonna have to put off his vacation maybe. Oh, just kidding.
Just 1%.
So let's see, the rest of the packet here, we've got Judy Reservoir reports, news articles, commissioner comments. I was gonna throw out August 8th. I'm gonna be out of town. Up to you guys if you want to meet that day.
I'm around.
If you're around, we can still meet.
There will be a date in September that I'll be available. I will ask if I can go Zoom and attend the conference in Chelan.
Okay.
So maybe on the 25th, we can just look at the workload. Maybe we could
Decide that.
Yeah, if it's a
When
light load,
when we plan that.
the second.
Yeah.
Tuesday
That sounds
or
good.
the 4th.
All right. With that, we'll adjourn at 6:46 p.m.